Welcome to the next chapter of As the Story Grows. I'm Brian Patton. This week, I'm joined by former A Plea for Purging frontman Andy Atkins. Andy breaks down the band's swan song release, The Life and Death of A Plea for Purging. The Life and Death turns 10 in 2021, and it was fun getting to go through my favorite Plea record with Andy. We chat about the lead up to the record, the writing and recording process, fan reaction, and go track by track to chat about the lyrics. We also talk about the band's reunion at Facedown Fest in 2017. This was a lot of fun, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
Cool, dude. How's it going, man?
Good, man. Good. I can't complain. How are you doing?
Pretty good, dude. Just living life, trying to make sense of all the craziness that's going on in the world and keep all my shit together and be sane, but it's good, man.
Yeah, how are you holding up?
Pretty good, dude. You know, long story short is at the end of, or the beginning of all this COVID stuff, I lost my job, my gig doing what I was doing. And so I've kind of just made it through the year hustling and doing a bunch of side hustles and stuff like that and really enjoying it actually. You know, it's a longer story, but I didn't really enjoy the thing I was doing anyway, but I just would have never left because of, security and comfort and making more money than I've ever made in my life kind of thing. But this has been a chance for me to just step out and kind of play with a few ideas and make some money, a lot less money than I was making, but just make various little revenue streams, you know?
Yeah.
And hopefully each of those things grow a little bit better and I continue to keep living my life.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, I'll go get another job somewhere, right?
Right. That's cool, man. I gotta say, it's almost distracting. You look just like one of my younger brothers. It's so funny.
He's a good looking dude.
He's got a beard too. It's
Nice,
very
dude.
strange. It's awesome, but it's like, whoa.
You can tell him I think he's a good looking boy.
I will. Well, I have to take a picture here.
Yeah.
Good times, man. Well, okay. So my Plea for Purging story is I saw Plea for Purging at what would have been the last Facedown Fest on the East Coast.
Okay,
And
cool.
I don't know, whenever that was, a long time ago. I think you were just signed to Facedown at the time. I think that's how
Yeah, dude, that's
back
so
the
long
East Coast
ago.
one was.
I'm looking at the poster right now.
Yeah.
I can't see the date, but yeah, it was like 06 or 07 or something.
Yeah. And like you guys were cool. You're a fun live band. And I had all the records, but I was never like a huge fan. And then this record, Life and Death, came out and it was like, well, holy shit, where was this band the whole time?
Sick. Yeah, that's cool. Our first record was garbage, dude. I've been on record saying it 100 times. So like,
It's wimpy.
you know, yeah, it's totally wimpy. We just didn't know what we were doing. And like the band started without me. And then I was like the second singer in the band. And we were all just, you know, those first couple of years were us just trying to figure out our sound and become the band that we are on the final record.
Yeah.
I think we finally started really finding what we were going for, like around Marriage. Like Depravity was our first venture into like trying to be a lot heavier, but also still have that melody that we had before. But I think we finally found like what we were trying to do at the Live, probably.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then was the last one, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. You guys worked with Josh Schroeder on this record. What made the change in producer and engineer for this record? Was that just a label recommendation or?
No, we were just looking for something else. I mean, we did a couple records with Joey Sturgis, you know, Depravity was with Joey. And then actually we tracked Marriage with Joey. And it's a long story, but he was supposed to do all of the mixing and mastering and everything for that record. And there was scheduling issues. So Brian Hood ended up doing the mixing and mastering of Marriage. And then on Life and Death, we actually got approached by one of those, like, I can't remember who was doing it, but it was one of those like pop goes punk, like hardcore goes rap, one of those things. And we got tossed some money from somebody. It might have been Rise, I don't know, to do one of those. And we went and recorded with Josh a Big Papa cover from Notorious B.I.G. And so we did that song with him, and it was kind of like a trial run a little bit, and it was so cohesive and so awesome working with him, even on that little joke song. It just felt so good because we'd already done that digital thing so much. Everybody got super into like programming drums and super like slate drum sounds and all that stuff and digital guitars. And the thing that Josh was trying to do was go back to more organic sounds, like real drum sounds, real guitar tones. And we wanted that. We were over that whole digitized, like perfect metalcore record. So that's like, we did that one song with him, loved it, and went back to him. And he was like my favorite producer we've ever worked with. It was really just, I don't know, he knew how to get the best out of you.
That's cool. And because that record sounds so much bigger, and like instantly when you hit play, it's like, oh, this is what Plea has in them. It's bigger, it's rawer, it just punches you in the face the way the other records just don't, in my opinion.
I think those like digital, and it has a lot to do with our songwriting and just getting better through the years, but also like those super like digital records, those tones just aren't like as big and full and have like real body behind them. That's all. And I'll be the first to say that I'm an idiot when it comes to anything production minded. Like, I have a little 2-channel interface that I can do podcast through. I don't know anything about the recording engineering process, to be honest. But to my like feeble little brain and ears, to me it sounds way better to be listening to real amps and real drums. And I think that record proves that for our band anyway.
Yeah. When you guys chose the name The Life and Death of a Plea for Purging, did you know that was going to be your last record?
No. That's what's crazy is like, I mean, through the entirety of our band, we were very like open and honest with each other and had a pretty ongoing conversation about where we were as individuals and where we are as a band. And we always had that conversation of the scales, the pros versus the cons thing. And like all of us were all agreeing on the fact that like once the cons outweighed the pros of the band for any member of the band, that's when the band was over.
Yeah.
And so we had that conversation like periodically through the whole entirety of the band. So when we put that record out and named it that, it wasn't already decided that we weren't going to be a band anymore, but it's crazy the foreshadowing of it, especially like when you dive into the lyrics and realize like there was a whole lot of like unhappiness going on within me and where I was in life. And I don't know. You look at it now and it's like pretty obvious that was like our swan song and that was it.
Yeah.
But it kind of just manifested itself, I think, after we put it out. It just became the reality.
Yeah. I remember when you were on Billy Powers' podcast, you talked about this record specifically and talking to Jason Dunn about like you were going through a transition of faith and questioning and not sure what you believed anymore, and how cool Jason was about letting you explore that on this record. And I've heard nothing but good things about Jason through various artists on this podcast. Were you nervous at all when you approached him or how fans would respond?
Dude, not really, man. Like, especially after we put out Marriage, and that was just like well received by Jason and Face Down and the fans. Like, we really thought when we put that record out that we were going to have like an insane amount of backlash from fans. We were a little worried that Jason wouldn't be okay with the content.
Yeah.
But I mean, he really believed in what we were doing and believed in us as like humans, and as opposed to a band. Like, he really cared about our hearts and what we were doing. So I think with putting that out, I felt really comfortable with the fact that he was just going to let me keep exploring, what I had going on. And it's just a huge testament to that dude and all of them, the Duns and the Quiggles that all run Face Down, like them being behind us when we were, talking about some pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Quite a bit different than like the standard Christian metalcore band or whatever,
Yeah, you guys weren't Sleeping Giant.
Right. But it was awesome to be able to like be that free. And I mean, of course, like you get the random kid that's like, yo, like, do you not believe in God anymore? What the heck? Like, but then there's also a lot of kids that are like, yo, you're saying all the stuff that I'm thinking about in my head, and I'm like too scared to say it out loud, or nobody can connect with me on this,
That's cool. Was there an overarching theme, or I guess, is there an overarching theme on Life and Death lyrically, or does each song have its own specific?
It wasn't set out to be any sort of like concept record. The two records before that, we'd kind of had more of like a cohesive, like, yo, we want to approach this topic or this mindset or whatever. And this one was just a lot. The guys just like let me have free reign pretty much on whatever I needed to get out and say. And like I had a pretty hectic couple years before this record came out. Like I lost both my parents and, just a lot of stuff going on in my life that they just let me explore that and talk about it. So like going into it, no. And then now looking back at it and like, especially like almost 10 years removed.
Yeah.
And over the last couple of days, I've kind of been listening to it and looking back at the lyrics, and it does all seem pretty cohesive now that like, maybe not as like there's this big theme, but like I can look back at my life and see a time period that was very much like a dude that like had been chasing this thing and caught this thing, and then maybe it wasn't everything he thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And there's like a lot of isolation in that. And so I think the whole record kind of could be summed up in like the isolation of, dealing with being alone quite a bit more than anything.
Yeah, I get that. Well, let's jump in. We're going to go track by track. So we'll start track 1, The Life.
It was sick. Like I had read a quote one time. It was a little paraphrase of the line I sing in the song, all of these young men dying of old age, to feel alive could cost you everything. I read some paraphrased version of that. Can't really remember where it was from, but that like every song we ever do usually sparks itself from some little quip I like read or heard or something, and that one was huge to me because like we're all just in this, there's a lot of phrases in there about running the human race and blah, blah, blah. But like that whole song was about like how we can't slow down, and like we're all just like running and chasing and have these aspirations of dreams and money, whatever it is, whether it's money or art or relationships. You're just always running and grasping, looking for the next thing, and you're never happy with like where you are in the immediate, and then once you've like caught that dream or whatever, the chase is over and you don't have anything pushing you forward anymore. I think that it's that whole thing of like the chase is more desirable than the thing that you're actually getting at the end, but that's still like, that's a song that like still has so much weight in life to me now.
Yeah.
Cause even after the band, I spent like 10 years, trying to be a grown up and figure out how to like do the grown-up thing, and then I look back at these lyrics and realize that I'm still doing that same thing, just like on a different level now of like trying to chase 401k plans and retirement and all that stuff, you know. But yeah, I mean, it's that whole thing of like, you're a kid, you dream of something, you start getting in that thing, and then you realize like, yo, maybe this isn't everything it was, or at least you're not seeing it with the same lens that you thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
In the beginning.
Yeah. Was the band that for you?
This record makes this sound like, and like as we keep going, and this is kind of like an overarching theme a little bit. So I want to like say that I realize how it looks kind of shitty that I'm just sitting here complaining about this amazing thing I got to do. Yeah. I got to travel with my best friends in the world, like best friends all over the world, getting paid money to play music. Like, that's incredible, and I'm insanely blessed that I was ever able to do that.
Yeah.
And like, don't regret it. And I'm so thankful that anybody that ever bought a shirt or a CD, or Jason who put out the stuff, like, I'm indebted to every single one of you guys that are listening to this right now. But then there was like all this stuff going on in my life. I'm like losing friends because I'm on the road all the time. And then you're going out and you're meeting all these new friends, but also like those friends aren't with you. Like, they're not the kind of friends that you had like really close relationships with. So you're just in this thing where you just feel isolated, and you feel like, it's like, dude, there's this new Justin Timberlake song where he talks about how lonely he is as a little kid being a rocker. Yeah. And it's kind of goofy because, you know, he's like a millionaire. But yeah, that kid was like 15 years old and he didn't have any friends because he was like chasing this dream. So yes, I'm super stoked that I ever got to do the band, but in it got really heavy there for a minute. You know, 10 years removed, now I'm thinking, dude, I'd way rather be riding down the road playing metalcore than like building decks or whatever it is that I do on a normal day, you know. But yes, it was a hard time in life right there towards the end.
Yeah, you think it's going to be something that it ends up not being, or your perspective on it changes when you're in the midst of it. Your dream is not the thing that makes you happy and gives you meaning.
Right. And you got to think like when we wrote these songs and we were like performing, like, man, we used to do like 250 plus days a year on the road. One year we did 300 days, literally 300 days. So like, you know, we were smashing and it just got overwhelming and really hard. And like, if you look back, things are way different in the music industry now too, but like if we could have took a step back and went, yo, maybe we just go home and we only tour like 2 or 3 months out of the year. Like we might still be a band, but like it was real white or black, you know, at that time. And it was time.
Yeah. Music City, track 2.
Dude, Music City is cool, man. It is the song that we wrote about our home. Like out of the whole record, there's kind of only 2 songs that aren't like super bummer, and this is one of them. But it's awesome. You know, like I'm born and raised in Tennessee, and like I owe so much of my life to like the Nashville community that supported me like well before I was in Plea. And like I was in a band way before Plea, ended up homeless, sleeping on people's couches, and worked my way back up into like real life. And then I left real life and jumped in Plea and started doing that whole thing again. And like I just have like a crazy backbone of community here. And so
Awesome.
that's where the song came from. There's like some cool spots in it that I think are cool. That there's a there's a spot in the song that says, "Take me back to the kids in our town," and it's like the letter R, and that's just like a little like jab towards Rocketown, because like Rocketown was like such a community back then. And my favorite part in the whole song is like the very end of the song. To anybody that knows nothing about Nashville, probably thinks I just had a stroke. And it's the most avant-garde lyrics I've ever written. But like it starts at "Alert the Sky," and then there's like a big long, like 2-paragraph long thing, and all that is like Nashville local band names. And I made them all fit together to like actually like try to mean something. But it's like just really to the standard listener, they're like, what is this dude talking about? But to anybody in Nashville, they're like, holy crap, that dude just said like 20 band names from Nashville. And it was sick. It feels really cool. When I listened to it yesterday or the day before, to get ready for this, it like gave me goosebumps, because it's just cool. Because like, I mean, we were never a big band. You look at like, we're so small in the world of even metalcore and hardcore. We're still a very small band, but we're probably like the biggest metal band that's ever come out of Tennessee, or not Tennessee, because Whitechapel's huge, but out of like Nashville. And so it was cool to be able to be out on the road. You know, when you get to stand up on stage and say, "We're a Plea for Purging from Nashville, Tennessee," it's cool to go around and tell people that there's more than just like country and jock rock and stuff from Nashville. So, I love that song. It's really cool. It's like wasn't very a good song live. We only played it a few times live, and it just never went over well, but it's sick.
That's cool. Nice hometown shout out.
Yeah, dude. And at the very end, also what's cool is like pretty much all those bands broke up.
Yeah.
Especially at the very end, I say, "But tell Sophia and Alcino we're still kicking it." Kicking it is lyrics to a song from Alcino. And so I like stole their lyrics, and I was just like, I was basically being like, "Yo, fuck you guys, we're still a band. Oh, you guys broke up." And then we broke up.
And then you broke up.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Heart of a Child.
Dude, this one is crazy and like hard for me, because when we wrote it, Aaron, our drummer, came to me and he was like, "Hey man, I support everything you do. I love like your heart and where you're at in the world, but could you try to write one song that's not a fucking bummer?" And I was like, man. Dude, I'll try. Like, I'm just like bummed out in the world right now. And he was like, "Dude, like if you could write something about like, you know, having like the youthfulness of children or heart of a child or something, that would be super sick. Like just, you know, try to find that thing in you." And so like when I wrote this, I hated it.
Yeah.
And it was big. It was like one of our, you know, it's the first single off the record. So like one of the 3 biggest songs we ever had, you know, and like, so people wanted to hear it. We had to play it. I hated playing it because for me, like everything about my personal life, but also Plea being my biggest form of art is like, I want to be so transparent and honest and genuine and like authentic. And like, those are all words that get thrown around a whole lot, but they really do mean a whole lot to me. Mm-hmm. And so like everything we ever did was like really on point with, yo, this is where I'm at in my life right now. And I feel like that song wasn't
Yeah.
where I was at in my life. Like when I wrote it, like it all felt fake to me, I guess, because it's all this, it's kind of anthemic, and it's like, yo, we're still like, we're positive young kids that are like out here taking over the world. And like,
Yeah.
and it wasn't that for me. But now what's really, and I'm super glad that he had me write it. And I just realized this, like this year, that like, it's so important. Like all the words that were said in the song are like important and valid. And like now I'm 39 years old, and I went through like a real heavy bout with depression, really. Like I've just recently kind of admitted that, like never had any kind of like diagnosis or anything, but
Yeah.
I realized like after the band, it took me a while to like find myself and my identity and who I am. And like just got kind of negative for a while. And it's cool to look back at this now, because I am in a really like positive headspace now, and like love life. And like this song is like what I'm chasing in my life currently. Like, I don't know if you follow any of my online like presence or persona or anything, but I got this whole like party on forever, put out goofy videos and blah, 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 blah. And that whole thing is just about remembering the things that brought you joy and got you stoked when you were young, and like capturing that youthfulness when you're 40 or 50 or 60 or 80. And so this song means a lot to me now. And at the time, I really hated it. I didn't like playing it. I'd love to play it today. It sounds really fun. But it's the whole thing. It's just about like that. It's about like the older you grow, still continuing to be like youthful and positive, and not to let your innocence die. Because there's a lot of things that like pull the rug out from underneath your feet the older we get, and make you more cynical. So if anybody's feeling that cynicism, dude, I'd say this is the song to listen to.
Nice. Was Misfortune, did you write those lyrics, or is that something Blake wrote?
Dude, Blake wrote those. What's cool about all the stuff that Blake did, he would like, especially on this record, like, you know, everything was, you know, the order of the songs and everything was really well thought out. And so Blake would like look at the song that I did before and the song that I did after, and kind of try to tie those two songs together with whatever his vocals were. But yeah, so all the stuff that he sang on the record, he either wrote or like paraphrased a little bit from some stuff that I had in other songs.
Cool.
But yeah, he did that one.
Cool.
But it's, you know, it's the same vibe of like, you know,
being a bummer.
Being a bummer, dude. Being a bummer. This record's a bummer. We could have talked about marriage, but then that record is just about hating people, and I don't hate anybody anymore.
Yeah. But that gets us to my song.
Yeah, the biggest bummer of them all, probably. Well, in the winter of 2010, my mom passed away. She killed herself, and like within 2 weeks, I got a call from somebody that my dad had died. I wasn't close to him. You know, my parents divorced when I was like 6 or so, and my dad was like a drug addict, alcoholic, super bad on all that shit. And so like I had been called like 20 times in my life saying like, hey, your dad's on his deathbed and like he'd get better and he'd be fine. So like this was just another one of those like, he'll probably get okay. But he passed away too. And so that was like a really heavy, that was like 2010. We wrote this record in 2011. So a lot of these other bummer songs probably like have a lot to do with this individual experience in my life, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's heavy, dude. Like I was super close to my mom. You know, there's a way long backstory of like mental health and my mom dealing with a whole lot of shit throughout her life. I got a call the day after Thanksgiving in 2010 that my mom had killed herself. So like that was super heavy. But that's what this song is all about, is like losing them. Like the dudes just kind of let me say whatever I needed to say. And that's some really personal, deep things to just put out to like 13-year-old metalcore kids and have them digest it, you know? But it's cool because it's been able to like allow me to have some really cool conversations with kids that have dealt with the same thing, whether they've lost their parents or, I mean, you hear the thing like at shows all the time where some kids like, you say your song saved my life. Like I was going to kill myself and I didn't, you know? And like a lot of that is like theatrics and dramatic shit, but like you can tell when you're having a real honest, like real conversation with somebody. Yep. And I've had a few of those off of this one, which is killer. But this song talks a lot about like not knowing the end. Like, what is it, man? Like, you know, backstories, like I grew up from about 12, 13 years old. That's when I like professed Christ and like got real big in a youth group and Christianity and got into wanting to be in a Christian band and that whole thing. And like, then you live your life and like a lot of crazy real life shit happens and you start questioning all those things that you said you believed when you were 12. And this song is like the pinnacle of that. Like, who knows, when you die, are you in the ground and you're done and it's lights out? Or is there really a heaven? Is there really a hell? Like, this is me for the first time ever publicly saying all that stuff and all the shit that I'm questioning in my head. And so it's cool to be able to do that in a comfortable, like safe place. And also my good bud, Chad Johnson from the band 100th sang on this song, and his part like gives me chills. I said that a minute ago about another song, but like I listened to it and like every time I hear that part, him singing like "Home is where the broken heart is like so heavy and cool and beautiful that like he would be willing to be on a song. Like, you know, when you ask people to be on your songs, like either like you have some lyrics for them to do or they have their own lyrics and you let them do whatever they want. But like when you hand somebody some lyrics and say, hey, you want to sing this song? Like that's a big thing for them to come on that song and agree to like say whatever that message is that you're putting out, you know? And so this is just a really deeply personal song. And it, to me, it's beautiful that he was willing to be a part of it and be on it and crushed it and sounded really good.
Turning in my head to slow me go.
Skin and Bones, another Blake song. Was that a decision you guys made going into the record to have these more almost interlude type parts, these quieter songs, to take a break from just the assault?
Yeah, for sure. I think like, you know, Blake was doing some like solo stuff alongside Plea at this time too. I think he put out a couple of different EPs under his own name.
Yeah, the Fragile or something.
Yeah,
maybe it wasn't the Fragile. That's the 9 Inch Nails record. But
I think it might have been called the Fragile EP or something. Yeah, but it's under Ryan Blake Martin.
Yeah.
And then he did another one too, I think. One was like
Fragile.
really acoustic, and one of them was like really electronic. The electronic one, if you haven't listened to it, you should, man. Like I don't think it got as much play or whatever
I
in the
haven't
world.
heard that one yet.
But it was pretty cool. But yeah, it was like, he was writing some really killer stuff on his own, and it was awesome to listen to. And it just seemed like it made sense to like incorporate that more into what we were doing. And like, I guess this record kind of was like a pivotal point in our band, and we ended up going one way and not being a band anymore. But if we would have kept going after this record, I think we would have had to keep like every record we were trying to do something and mature in a new way. And I think it would have been us going more that route, which I don't know where I come into play on that. Cause like if we start doing a lot of like super singing melodic stuff, like I'm not that guy. I can't really sing very well. So like, who knows what would have happened? I mean, we played with the idea a couple of times of like me going to guitar and Blake becoming the singer, and like us being more of like a rock and roll band or something. And that never happened. But like, I think if we would have continued on as a band, we probably would have like moved towards some sort of dual vocaled, Deftones sounding thing, probably. But we never got that far.
That would have been wild.
Dude, the stuff that Blake sang on this record is beautiful. It's so good.
Yeah, it's great.
The song is super good. And I just like, I'm so literal in a lot of the stuff I say, and it's cool to get to see like, I'd write all these lyrics, do these songs. Blake would be like, okay, I'm going to glue them together with an interlude song. And like, he's taking all the words that I said in songs and then, like putting them out in a different way that comes out of his brain, like a reinterpretation of what I'm trying to say. And it feels cool to see that in a more poetic voice, because I'm not very poetic.
Yeah.
So I love it, man. I love the stuff he did on this record.
There's a battle for my soul between God and the devil and rock and roll. And when my head hits the seats, my feet will hit the ground, run into heaven before the devil knows I'm dead. This place is a waiting room, waiting on the stage, waiting to burn.
Next up, we got Room for the Dead, and I mean, holy hell, this song is so heavy. It's always been my favorite Plea song.
Cool.
I love it so much.
Dude, that's like, I wish it was more people's favorite Plea song, because I truly think that it might be like my best work, like as a lyricist and as a vocal performance. I feel like this record like was the most shining that I ever did as a vocalist. Cause like, I'm not like super good. I'm like a one trick pony, like just real mid range. Like I lose my voice every single time we record a record. Like when we recorded Depravity, like I almost left the band. Like was like, yo, do you guys want to bring somebody else to do this record? Because I can't pull it off. And like, I ended up, it was like I was being dramatic. But like, that record came out, and then we did Marriage, and the same shit happened where I like barely scream and barely talk. And like this one, it was like the least dramatic of all the, like, I just kind of came in and was like more ready, and was also, since we were doing more, we weren't trying to fit any specific, like perfect digital metalcore mode like the first couple records before this one. I was able to be a little more organic because the other dudes were too. So like I'm still pretty much just screaming, but in this record I was like able to like do some of the tonal, we call it like trucker singing, but that whole like you're screaming, but there's like tone, kind of like Corey from Norman Jean or something.
Yeah, or like Josta.
Yeah. And like, so I was able to try to do a little more of that. Like there's a couple parts that feel almost kind of rappy or something, or like Slipknotty. And so I like this song a whole lot because I feel like I got to like do a little bit of that vocally. And like, I just felt like the lyrics were like good and kind of like, I don't know, clever.
I think that chorus is like super catchy too.
Dude,
it's like,
thanks.
It's such a great hook.
I love it, dude. I think it was just even doing that whole like doctor thing, like was just outside of my box and what I'm used to. And it felt really cool. But that song's like really dealing with the whole, like, you know, the first line says that where there's a battle before my soul between God, the devil, and rock and roll, man. That's it. That's like the life. Like that's every single Christian dude, Christian metalcore dude. You know, everybody's trying to figure out where they are. They're still the goody two-shoe kids that they were when they were 13. Are they the super, like, are they drinking and getting drugged every night of the tour, you know? Or are they like just sold out to being a rocker, you know? And like, that's what this song is about, you know, just trying to figure out your place in the world. And man, there's some cool lyrics in it. I like the God, I don't know. I could just read the whole song and be like, yo, this part's sick and this part's sick. But I think it's cool.
Yeah.
And there's like, it's all like, I kind of, you know, I said that this record is about a lot of isolation.
Mm-hmm.
But also like the bigger part of me is always searching for solidarity and like trying to find meaning between me and you. Like we're like, we don't know each other. This is the first time we ever talked, but like, it's important to me that like at the end of this night, like I just met and talked to a new person.
Yeah.
And whether we ever like have a real conversation again, is like, this is very important and valid to me. But like this song is kind of, one more thing I was going to say about this one is like, it's just like an equalizer. It starts and there's like a bridge where it talks about like, murdered or murderers were all the same. Kingsmen are poorly dressed. We're all pawns in this game. Like we're all equalized, man. We're all like, when it's all said and done, like we're all just trying to, you know, fucking struggle through this life. And we're the same people. We just don't realize it. Some of us are on our high horses and others are in valleys. But if we'd all just take time, especially like in 2020, everything's so divisive.
Yeah.
Whether you're like left or right or whatever. Like if there was more of just this, like two people, like strangers talking to each other and having some sort of connection, more of that would be killer and make the world a better place.
Yeah, for sure. Right. A Fight for Peace. Kind of in the title there.
Yeah, dude. You know, let me search these lyrics real quick. Yeah, I mean, dude, it's like dude, yeah, okay. It's kind of like what I was just talking about, but I mean, we're all like living life, right? Like whether you're some rich dude, you're some poor dude, Christian, non-Christian, we all have our face that we're putting out there into the world, but then there's the thing inside that's deep that really like you're not letting everybody in the world in your pocket and letting them know what's going on in you. And the reality is like we're all fighting the same fight. We're all trying to be happy. We're all trying to like make something of ourselves, whether that's like money or success or relationship or whatever. And I think this song's just that thing I just said about the last song. Like, this is the equalizer of like, we're all fighting the same fight. It's just we're fighting different faces in different places. It's all got different names, but like, it's all the same thing, dude. We're all just trying to get to that next spot in life that makes a little more sense than the spot we're at right now.
We'll jump to Words Misread. Which has that kind of cynical band dude, mad at fans vibe.
Yeah, dude. I kind of hate it. I listened to it today and was kind of bummed because it seems so that it seems like, yo, I'm just bitching at our fans. But also the song right before this called Hell at Our Backs. That's a shout out to a local Nashville band that was called Hell at Our Backs. Just wanted to put that in there. But Words Misread, dude. We put out the record of Marriage of Heaven and Hell. And like that whole record was, you know, a culmination of us being in the Christian music industry. And like, dude, we could do a whole podcast about that record.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But like, we were at a bad spot. We saw a lot of shit that we didn't agree with, didn't like what was going on. We put a record out about it. Pointing fingers at people and like, calling them out, you know, but not actually calling them out because we were too scared to say their names. You know? But like, what's cool about that record is we put it out and like some of those people that we had issue with and talked about, like we had really great conversations afterwards and like, you know, came to some resolve and it was one of the heaviest records that was ever put out in the world. So it's cool that we did it. But with all that being said, like right after we put that record out, it just seems like there were a lot of people, and maybe there was just a lot of people feeling that way.
Yeah.
But it seemed like there were just like a gang of kids ready to like just go after people and call them out on their shit. And like, that's not what I was trying to do. I wasn't trying to like start a war or get a whole bunch of people just to like turn their backs on these bands or whatever. I was basically just like, the whole point of that record was for people to question like everyone and everything. Like, don't follow anyone or anything blindly. Believe in it for yourself. And I felt like all it really did was just get a bunch of people to completely agree and jump on our bandwagon for a minute. And I wasn't looking for that. I was just, and there were like other bands putting out the same record. Like, I'm not going to call anybody out, but like there were other bands that said the same, they just like took our shit and did the exact same like record and said the same things and started calling out all these other Christian bands. And I was like, that's not what we're going for here. We're not trying to start some new revolution of like shit talking Christianity. Yeah. Even though we're all Christians or whatever, like it just felt really like heavy. And I didn't like that, like we put that vibe in the world. Like looking back, like I'm proud of everything we did. And like I said, it's so important for me to be honest and authentic. But then when you look back, like, you know, 10, 11 years removed and you're like, oh man, like were we just spreading a bunch of hate, you know, like and disguising it as something like more noble? I don't know. But that's what Words Misread is. It's just me like realizing that I stirred the pot and maybe I felt bad about it, I guess, probably.
Speak of regretting and all the risk we take. Speak to the morning and when our eyes awake. The patterns are
Does Hands and Feet have any relation to that? I mean, I know you said Blake took a lot of what you were saying and incorporated them.
It definitely, yeah, it has to do with that whole thing, like trying to, take some risk, and put some stuff out there, but then maybe regret it after you've done it.
Yeah. Cool. Living the dream.
Living the dream is that the whole thing about like being in the band and chasing this dream kind of goes back to the life a little bit. Like you're on the road nonstop. I mean, just without end. And like you think you're living the dream because you're chasing this thing, and then you catch it and like you realize that it's just exhausting. Maybe it wasn't everything you wanted it to be. I mean, there's like cool things about like I've run and run, I drove and drove 300,000 miles of lonely roads. Like that's a shout out to like, we had 3 different vans, but our last van, we put 333,000 miles on it. So like that was our last van. Our first couple vans, we'd had, a couple 100,000 on each of those. But then it's like to see the ones I love at home move on without me. I'm just a memory like that. Like I had such a solid, awesome group of friends like before I started touring. And then once I started touring, it's my fault. But you get very out of sight, out of mind. Like new city, new person, new girl, new friend, whatever. Like you meet these new people every day and it's all exciting and so great that you just stop calling and texting the people that are back home. And then they stop calling and texting you, and they all start having kids because we're in our late 20s, and like they're all starting to have families and start careers and make 60, 70, 80, $100,000 a year. And I'm like in this metalcore band, like barely making 10 or $20,000 a year or whatever.
Yeah.
And like, it's just, you think you're living this dream because you're chasing this dream, but actually over on this other path that you didn't take, you're seeing everybody else move on past you.
Yeah.
And now I can look back and be like, yo, like I saw a quote from Gary Vee that was like, do you want all the shit that your friends have? And the cartoon was like, no. And he goes, okay, why are you like concerned about it? Why are you always trying to get those things? And now I look back at it like that and be like, I was doing the thing that I wanted. Like when I was 13 years old, the only fucking thing I wanted in the world was to get in a van and go play some 100 to 200 cap venue.
Yeah.
Like that's all I wanted out of life. And I've done that like 1,000 times over, man. I've played every single city in America and like, 19 countries. So like I really was living the dream, but at the time, this was like the sarcastic version of that,
Right. In the moment, it doesn't feel like it, but with hindsight, you go, no, that was what I wanted.
Right. Now I look back at all this stuff and I'm like, wow, I was so whiny.
I should have kept doing that.
Bitchy.
Yeah.
But, it's just the headspace I was in at the time,
Yeah. Then we get the death.
Dude, the death is sick. This has got Chad from Vania on it.
Yeah.
Also, dude, I didn't say earlier, but Heart of a Child has got Chad from Legend on it.
All the
so
Chads.
This record, we just had a whole bunch of Chads on it. We were trying to get Chad from Maylin and the Sons of Disaster to send us a pinch harmonic on the guitar. Then there was this band way back in the day on Strike First called Within. Yeah. And their drummer, his name was Chad, and we were trying to get him to send us a snare drum sample. We're just trying to have a bunch of Chad guest spots because that's funny for some reason.
That's funny.
Because we just don't take anything seriously. But, dude, Chad from Vania was on this song, and he crushed it.
Yeah.
This song's sick, man. It's like just about... You're literally seeing, or I don't want to say literally. I hate when people say literally and it's not literal. But you're figuratively seeing the world around you on fire, dude. And like, you know, you don't realize it, but everything's just crashing around you. Like this kingdom or like thing that you've built up is falling. It's dying. This is the death of A Plea for Purging, like the end of this record, and you don't even know it at the time,
right?
Like watching it all crumble. But this song's a lot about like questioning what is manhood, what have I become? You know, like you go back to the 13-year-old kid that like idolized this one thing and wanted this one thing for your life, and then once you become like a 30-year-old man, maybe you have different ideals and different opinions and different passions and wants and beliefs than that 13-year-old kid did. And you're wrestling with it in your brain, you know, because like none of us, when we die at whatever, however old we're going to be, like if you just never progressed past your 13-year-old ideals and mindsets and thoughts, like that's not growth. And you want more than that, but also like you want the purity of that innocence and how beautiful it is to dream about something at a young age and to actually be able to chase it. That's the cool thing to look back at all this and like, this is all kind of a bummer, but the overarching theme is like, dude, I did the thing. Like I like whether I'm like in the Foo Fighters right now or not, and I'm not playing like Wembley Stadium. My simple dream was to get in a 15-passenger van and play shows and tour, and I did it, and I did it everywhere in the fucking world, and it was like it's so sick, you know?
Yeah.
But like the death was like that all culminating to the end, you know? But dude, that's a heavy song. There's some cool lyrics in there. I love this stuff where it talks about like, oh, I heard this quote, and Josh, the guitar player from the band Wants Nothing, posted this on Twitter or Facebook, however long ago, like 2010 or something, and it meant it, and this was where this song came from. He posted something that said, "Boys play games and men live the truth," and like that, like just stuck me like a sword or something, and it just meant it just tumbled in my brain forever and made me put this record out or put this song out. But to think about like men live the truth, and that's what this whole record is about. It's like being honest and living the truth and saying like what is on my mind and not playing games, not like hiding because everything we did, we could have hid and played everything very safe.
Yeah.
And did the super easy, like spiritual warfare, like battle cry songs that like every metalcore band does, you know,
done the As I Lay Dying thing and like,
right.
It and
you know, and so like, I never wanted to be that. And that's like kind of how we started out a little bit. And it like, if you go back to the very first record of Critique, like we were that band, but like we thought that's what we were or thought what we wanted to be. And like you get out on the road a little bit and like real life experiences start taking over and you kind of do a different thing. But I think this record or this song is really about like, you know, dying on your own sword kind of thing. You know, if you're going to put
Yeah.
your honesty out in the world, be willing to like let it die by it, I guess, you know?
Yeah. Then the record closes with The Setting Sun. I've seen my share of heartache, but I'm not the only one. My hopes and dreams are setting. They're setting with the sun.
I've seen my share of heartache, but I'm not the only one. My hopes and dreams are setting. They're setting with the sun.
That's heavy.
That's
But
heavy.
it sounds really pretty. If you play
Yeah.
that, that's like the prettiest thing that we've ever put out ever. But you know, that kind of is like saying, like, yo, all my hopes and dreams are over. Dude, they're setting with the sun. Like, that's a really like dark way of ending a record and then never putting out another song.
Yeah,
again.
and ending the band on that note.
Yeah. So it's crazy to look back hindsight and just see how terribly honest it was, like, or obvious that we put out this record and we weren't going to be a band anymore. And probably everybody that saw the title and heard any of the lyrics knew it, you know, but we didn't know it. That's what's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, you guys did reunite to play Face Down Fest in 2017. What was that like?
Dude, it could have been really awesome, but it wasn't.
Oh,
man.
no.
And like, well, it's solely because we were so like, our band more than anything was about family and friendship. And it started with like 5 dudes, and throughout the life of the band, that like 5th member, it was Lyle, and then Lyle left the band and a guy named Tyler took his spot, and then he left the band. But other than those 2 dudes, which are still like just as very much rooted in family with the 4 the other of us, like we're all like a unit, and like everybody, those 2 dudes came in and out of the band just on like, you know, their own preference of not wanting to be in the band anymore. But anyway, with all that being said, we all like, when we decided not to be a band anymore, it was like a pretty honest, like, yo, we're never doing this again. Like, we're done. That's it. And then when Jason asked us to come do Face Down Fest, we actually said no first, and then we ended up saying yes. But long story short, is we got there, we flew there. We hadn't played a show in 7 years or 5 years. And we like rent a practice space out there. We like rehearse for like 4 days or whatever, get all ready, dialed in. And then John, our bass player, his wife was pregnant in Tennessee.
Oh,
and
no.
she calls him and says, hey, I'm prematurely going into labor.
Oh, man.
Like, and I get all the facts wrong, but like, it was way premature, like a couple months or something. And so John had to get on a flight back to Nashville the day before we played.
Oh.
So that in itself, like, that is way more important than anything that has to do with playing metalcore for 45 minutes on a stage, right? Like, the birth of John's son and his life, like, worlds more important. So, you know, like, we have to rush into the hospital. It's like this whole, or to the airport, get on a plane. It's a crazy long story, but then we have to play the show and we don't have a bass player. And so when Plea, the very last couple of years of the band, Plea played with like a computer playing one of the guitar parts. We're like one of those bands. So, but we weren't going to do that at Face Down Fest. We like actually brought in Tyler from Gideon to play guitar with us. Everything was just going to be like really organic and real. So me and Blake went to Guitar Center, bought all the gear that you'd need to buy to record and to use live on stage to have a tracked bass. And so spent all night long the night before when Face Down Fest is happening and everybody's there playing and partying and hanging out and having a good time. All these dudes that we hadn't seen in 5+ years. Blake and I are at the Face Down compound at Jason's house recording bass parts so that the next night we could play with the tracked bass. And so it just wasn't a good experience because, like, one, you know, John was dealing with his issue. Blake and I, you know, spent the whole weekend like working as opposed to hanging. And then the most important part is like we're on stage without our brother, without John, who is like, God, he is the glue of A Plea for Purging. Like, he was the dude he was the backbone of our band. Like, to the dudes out in the crowd, he might just be the big, gnarly, cool bass player, but he's the dude that like got us where we were, man. Like the first van we had was his, and we blew it up on the side of the road, and he booked all our shows for like years and made all the decisions and drove all the time. And so, you know, just being on stage without him was a real heavy weight, which is a bummer because, you know, if you're going to reunite, like, it should be something amazing and beautiful. And like, I really think it was going to be that. And the fact that like we couldn't have John there, it didn't feel that way.
It's a bummer.
But it was amazing. It was super amazing. Yeah, I feel like everything I'm just like a heavy wave, which is funny because I'm like pretty positive in the world right now. So you can see in 2011 I wasn't. But with all that being said, it was really amazing that Jason wanted us to come out and be a part of it. I mean, like, just like being a part of like the legacy that is Face Down Records. And also I can scale it down and realize that I know that Face Down is nothing in the grand scheme of the music of the world. Right. But like to a small sect of people, like the only things that mattered in the world were Tooth and Nail Records and Face Down Records. Right. And like the fact that I was able to be a part of one of those and like I'll live on, like, my music, like, will be on Spotify for the rest of the world, right? When we're long gone, and like some random kid in like 87 is going to like stumble across one of those songs. And, you know, nobody's going to be listening to our band at that point, but like one kid hears a song off this record and it means something to him. That's insane, dude. That can still happen. Like, I had a kid come up to me a few days ago that was like, dude, I still listen to your stuff all the time. Like, it means the world to me. And so that's insane that I was able to connect with anybody emotionally that I didn't know through these lyrics. And it's insane that Jason Dunn and Virginia Dunn and Dave Quiggle and Shannon Quiggle, everybody at Face Down, like, allowed us to do that. That's so sick. It feels very humbling. Like, it's cool that like this many years removed from it all, like, I've had an uptick in doing like podcasts this year. I think it's just because like everybody's home and there's like multiple new podcasts starting and stuff like that. But like, it's cool that like I'm just some normal dude that like nobody really cares about anymore. But like, there was like a point in my life, a small time in my life, where I did something that was important to some people. Maybe not a ton of people, but some people. And some of those people still care enough that they're going to listen to this and hear me talk about it. You know, like, that's just neat that like, I'm just super honored and blessed. Like, those are funny words get overused all the time, but like, it's cool.
Thanks for listening to As the Story Grows. Our theme song was written and composed by the legendary Bob Nana. If you like what you hear, subscribe on iTunes and give the show a rating and review. If you'd like to support the show financially, click on the Patreon link at asthestorygrows.com. If you enjoyed this episode, share it on social media with your friends. Much appreciated, and thanks for listening.